said, we are all just prisoners here of.
Hello, welcome and good afternoon. I'm extremely sorry for the delay in the program. We had another NASCOM event happening at another venue, so there was some overrun there. Let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Ashok. I run the 10,000 Startups program from Bangalore. What we're going to do today is, for the first time, we are launching the Think Big, Think Fast program, which is a series of programs where we are going to get entrepreneurs who build successful products from India, sharing their experiences about the challenges that they've faced and what lies ahead for some of the young budding entrepreneurs in this room. So I'll briefly speak about the 10,000 Startups program. Since we are already late, I won't take too much time. So the program has been in existence for over a year and a half now. The program is an ASCOM initiative aimed at helping early stage technology companies become successful. So as part of that, we help startups with three things. One is doing a lot of evangelization on technology and entrepreneurship. So we do a lot of hackathons, workshops, tech talks across the country. It's a pan-India initiative. Second thing is we also provide startups with early stage support. So support in terms of getting funded, incubated, mentored, and getting connected to people in the industry. And lastly, we also help startups become more capable in terms of skilling. So we do a lot of product management, design workshops across the country. And then we also have been running this place called the Startup Warehouse in Bangalore. It has been operational from last August. It's a co-working space. We have some really interesting startups working out of there, about 17 of them. So they typically are with us for about 6 months, and then we again cycle through a new bunch of startups. And we want to open more such warehouses across the country. That's the vision of the program as well. Then we also do a bunch of connects where we connect startups who already got some validation for their business to meet more people from the industry to get further validation and acquire customers. And we've been doing more of these focused events. We've done one on retail, one on banking, one on healthcare, and we're going to do one education and other verticals as we go along. So coming to the agenda, we have three main sessions today. First, we have a keynote presentation by Dheeraj Rajaram, who is the co-founder of MuSigma. Then we have a Think Big session by Sam Hamilton, who is the Vice President of Data at PayPal. And lastly, we have the Think Fast panel discussion with three startups who are solving very interesting problems in the space of data and analytics. So this session will be moderated by Srinivas Kolipara, who is the from IIIT, who heads the IIIT incubator here in Hyderabad. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Dheeraj Rajaram, who will be the keynote speaker. So just a quick introduction on Dheeraj. So he was working as a strategy consultant for Booz Allen Hamilton, and then subsequently with PricewaterhouseCoopers. Dheeraj founded MuSigma in 2004. MuSigma is an analytics service company for those of you who don't know. And his work with MuSigma has worked with 125 of the Fortune 500 companies. And they've also managed to raise lots of millions of dollars of funding from various investors. Dheeraj was also recognized in Fortune's magazine's 40 Under 40 list last year in 2013. So with that, I'd like to invite Dheeraj onto the stage.
Let me understand, what would you like to get out of this? Within the organization by name INSOFI, International School of Engineering, consulting and training for big data and analytics. What I've understood last 3 years in the setup is there's a lot of buzz, a lot of
guys. One thing, we should have a very short way of asking a question, so that many people can ask the questions. Okay, tell me your question very quickly.
Yeah.
What's your question?
The kind of scope and the career growth one as an individual can avail in the space of big data. First.
Okay, so what can we do in big data? Simple way of asking questions. Okay, what's the next one? Yeah. Sense of big data. I like that. Essence of big data. Wow. Okay. What is the? Oh, wow. I don't know if I know all the answers to these things. Huh? Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Hello. I want to become a service provider in the big data analytics space.
Sure.
Which sectors I need?
Should I be telling you stuff because you will become my competitor?
Yeah, no issues. We'll compete together.
Actually, competition is good. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to know the impact of big data with respect to the all analytics platform.
Okay. Yeah. Fine. Impact of big data, essence of big data. How can I become a big data provider? Okay. 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 Okay.
Yeah, I'm Reddy Raja. Is there any money in big data?
Is there any
money in big data?
Okay. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Pankaj, and my question is, like, what is the scene of big data in India? You know, we do not have that much data digitalized by now. So, can we do something to, you know, get the data online and then take?
Sure.
Will the government take decisions?
Yeah. Will government do something about it? Okay. Yeah. What else?
Big data has already been there for like last couple of years now. What is the future of big data?
Yeah. Okay. I got it. I think I'm getting the essence of what you want. Okay.
Hello. Actually, I want to know, like, as startups, we cannot afford too much money on, using such hi-fi technologies and all that stuff.
Correct.
So how can we make use of big data affordably, and what are the available options for any company which is trying to get into the technology?
Sure. So let's start with, what is this thing called big data, right? Okay, one more. He's all, he wants this question asked. Quickly, yeah. Tell what is it?
Would investors be interested in a company which has just started out gathering data and eventually
started off
gathering data?
Gathering data. I mean, that's, you can never predict investors. Okay.
Yeah, I've started this company 2-3 years ago in big data. Everyone speaks about big data, but nobody take a decision in India. When I speak to anybody in Asia and US, they really respond. And I'm trying to do something really good in India, but haven't seen one result so far in the last 3 years. Why is that so?
I don't know.
If I speak few companies in US and Europe and all, at least it comes to some conclusion. But when you come back to India, 100 people speak about it, one person want to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So in your mind, what is big data? Lots of data. Okay. Information overload. All the V's. Somebody said, what is that V? Veracity, volume. You guys read what IBM says. Good stuff. I am not a big fan of those definitions. I don't like any of those definitions. I think those definitions suck. Why do I believe those definitions suck? I believe those definitions are not good because if you ever try to describe something by what and how, you are never going to get to the essence of it. if you try to describe something by why is this important, then there is a higher chance that you may get to the essence of it. What is big data? Well, a lot of data, volume, velocity, veracity, variety, viscosity, whatever you want to call. Very soon people are going to talk about viscosity of data. It's also with me, right? And you can easily gather 50 people to come and sit in a room to listen to it, right? So, and as long as you can say that you can make some money from big data, then there are more and more people who will come and line up. So I think I like to describe this by why. And big data is not useful unless you can get it to big decisions. How do you get things to big decisions? How do you help people make decisions? Do you have clarity around what decisions you are going to enable? If you have that clarity, you can get closer to the right product, the right service, whatever you want to get. But you need to have tremendous amount of clarity. And you have to fight for clarity. You get the clarity that you deserve. Every person gets a level of clarity in life. And he gets what he deserves, nothing more, nothing less. But you have to fight for that clarity. My perspective, and the way I think about this whole space, is that the world is becoming more and more virtual. What do I mean by that? Let's take the last 100 years. If you take the last 100 years from large machines that we were making, aircraft engines, cars, to you're okay? Can you hear me? So large machines to mainframes, computers that you could touch and feel, to the concept of personal computers, which are much smaller in size but more powerful, to the concept of the operating system, which became something that you can't touch and feel, it was software, to the concept of connectivity with the internet, to the concept of search, which is more an algorithm than anything else, to the concept of social connectivity, which is not even an algorithm, it's actually a human behavior. Things have been moving from things that you could touch and feel to things that you cannot touch and feel. And what is happening in that world when things move from things that you can touch and feel to things that you cannot touch and feel? The physical supply chain is becoming more and more a decision supply chain. What is a decision supply chain? A business issue or even a human issue, just an issue, right? It could be a business issue, it could be malaria, it could be better democracy, it could be anything. You take that issue, from there, how do you articulate that business issue? How do you make sure that the right hypotheses are put in place? For those hypotheses, you figure out what are the right questions. For those questions, ask what data is needed. Based on that data, look at, what are the findings, come up with insights, recommendations, actions, measurement, reporting. That's a decision supply chain. Now that's just one decision supply chain. In an organization, there are many decision supply chains that are running in parallel with each other. And by the way, these decision supply chains are not only iterative, that they go from, they go cyclically many times, they also talk to each other. So it acts like a decision market. So if you want to see this, take that perspective, then you see that what are the commonalities between decision supply chains and physical supply chains? Decision supply chains, you need to minimize the decision cycle time like a physical supply chain. You need to avoid decision stock out. If you need a decision, you need to be able to take that decision. You can't say no decision today. If you want to make decisions, you need to minimize the decision inventory holding costs. These are things that are common. You can learn from physical supply chains to decision supply chains. What are the things that are not common? The things that are not common are the fact that what is this thing that goes inside a decision supply chain? What are the things that move inside a decision supply chain? It's actually this concept of data or information, or other transformations of that. Right? It's a virtual good that moves. Now this thing, because it's a virtual good, it can move at lightning speeds. It can move at extreme mobility, and it can move with extreme liquidity. It can move anyway fast. What happened when particles started moving really, really fast? What happened? Uncertainty happened, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Yeah, what else happened? Collisions happened, okay, what else? Electricity happened, okay, great. The rules changed from mechanical to electrical, okay? Man, you're too dangerous. So, you remind me of how I was at college. Say something. It's okay, I'm in good shape, so you'll also be there. So, I think the major thing that happens when particles move at speeds that you've never seen them move is that the rules of science change. From Newtonian physics to Einsteinian physics to string theory, right? The rules of the game change. I'll give you a simple example. From Chicago to New York, before railways were invented, it used to take like 6 months to travel by wagon. Okay? The day it got invented, the time to make that trip came to 72 hours. What happens when something that used to take 6 months starts taking 72 hours? First things, the possibilities are limitless. Right? First thing is that the possibility becomes limitless. You start suddenly saying, wow, I could actually, you know what? You're giving me this thing here for, bananas for, $50. I'm getting better bananas in Chicago if I wait for 72 hours. So for $40, I'm ready to wait $40 for 3 days. The rules suddenly change. Rules of the game change. If you truly understand why, then you will understand how the rules change. And if you truly understand how the rules change, then you can make sense of how these rules will change and how you can take advantage of that. So you have to go back to first principles. You cannot do things because I want to make a lot of money here. What they say, a lot of money, learn Java programming, learn big data, learn Hadoop. Right? You have to really want to solve problems. And you have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to get the clarity it deserves. If by chance you get that clarity, if you are lucky enough to have that clarity, after that you need to have focus. You cannot get distracted in entrepreneurship. So there are 3 standards that I have for entrepreneurship.